People really need to stop using art as an excuse. And this might be controversial. I'm sure I'm going to offend somebody, but I've come across a lot of people, met a lot of people, talked to a lot of people, and they tend to use art as an excuse for what they're doing, whether it's not making any money, producing something that people don't like, or just for the most part, just being lazy and not producing anything. Now, again, I'm sure this is going to offend somebody, but I think you're able to, if you're good at what you do and you spend the time doing it well and doing it enough, getting the experience, that you can be successful, whether it's monetarily or just maybe money's not a priority for you, but you'll get the recognition that most people I think are after. I think it's very rare that someone would want to produce art for the sake of just everyone hating them like that. Maybe their goal is to produce hate, but maybe being apathetic is a better way to say that. People want some kind of response from what they're producing, and if people are just kind of like, "Oh yeah, that's cool," that's not the response you want. You either want people to be like, "Oh, that's awesome, man! You did such a good job! Whoa, that's crazy! I've never seen anything like that before." Or maybe you want to really rile someone up and make them really angry. That's totally legitimate too. Or you want someone to pay you for your services, but the reason I'm making this is I've seen a lot of people who they're like, I don't care about money. I don't need to make money. I just want to make art. I want to do my thing. And they get like tunnel vision because they're not worried about money, because they're not worried about what people think and their reputation or the recognition. They get tunnel vision on like what they want to do in this very specific, like, this is my vision. This is what I'm doing. And when you do that and you lose that input from other people and that the seeking approval from other people, you can end up wasting a lot of your time and energy on something that ultimately, like, for what purpose, right? Just for the sake of doing it. Now, I know there's plenty of artists, like famous artists, like Picasso and Rembrandt and all these guys who, well, Rembrandt maybe isn't a good example, but you have famous artists who during their lifetime, maybe they weren't as iconic as they are now. Certainly, there's people who we look at today with much more reverence than they ever got when they were alive. And part of that too is, when people die, people end up kind of cherishing their work a little bit more, and they look back with, kind of like only looking at the good and loving them for what they did and what they contributed. It's kind of unfortunate that happens after people die, but it is what it is. But there's plenty of people who are looking to produce something, but they don't want the input of other people because it's their vision, it's their goal, and they're kind of like, they want a total control. And they don't care about money. They don't want to do it for money because that's selling out or whatever. And they don't care what people think. And I think that's really unhealthy, especially for an artist. I think you should be focused on making something that's actually going to resonate with somebody, whether it's a painting, a video, a song. I don't care what it is. I would hope that you'd want to make something that they're going to take something away from it, right? They're going to appreciate it in some context, whether you did something new and revolutionary, or you just took something old and made it fresh, or you just made something awesome. Whatever it is, I think it's really good for people to make things that are good, because art for the sake of producing art, like what's the value? What's the value in that if people aren't able to get something out of it? You look at people who maybe, like, there's one guy I saw, he like uploads a YouTube video like every day of him drinking water. I mean, if that's your hobby and that's what you just like want to do, and that's enjoyable, great. But don't use that as an excuse to like neglect work, friends, family, whatever it might be, because you can't say that like what you're doing is valuable, I guess, in a sense. And like that's really harsh and that's really mean, but there needs to be value to what you're doing if you're going to call it art. And you don't necessarily have to sell out, but I don't think people who do things for money are selling out. They're just taking what they do and they do it so well that they're saying, okay, you like what I do? Great. Well, pay me for it and I'll do more of it. I think that's totally legitimate. That's what every company does on the planet. Apple makes iPhones because people want them. So they're like, all right, great. You want more iPhones? Pay us more money and we'll make more. It's just kind of the nature of human relationships and how we all function as a society. But don't use art as an excuse to just do whatever you want without any regard to anyone else, because it's not a good thing. It's, I don't know, maybe you're lazy, maybe you're just blinded and by your own delusions, but don't use art as an excuse. I don't know how else to say it.